Shrivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, and Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Okay, so as I understand it, we are on Canto 8, Chapter 7, Text 30 and 31. Is that the right understanding? I hope it is. Okay, good. So let me get to Chayatvadarmor Mishuyar Visargo Netra Trayam Sattva Rajas Tamamsi Sankyatmana Shastra Kritas Taveksha Chando Mayo Deva Rishi Purana Chayadvador excuse me, Chayadvadarmor Mishuyar Visargo Netra Trayam Sattva Rajas Tamangsi Sankyatmana Shastra Kritas Taveksha Chando Mayo Deva Rishi Purana. So the word for word reads Chaya, shadow, tu, but, adarmu urmishu, in the waves of irreligion, like kama, krodha, lobha, moha. Yai, by which. Visarga, so many varieties of creation. Netra trayam, three eyes. Sattva, goodness. Rajaha, passion. Tamamsi, and darkness. Sankhya atmanaha, the origin of all Vedic literatures. Shastra, scriptures. Krita, made. Tava, by you. Iksha, simply by glancing. Chanda, Maya, full of Vedic verses. Deva, O Lord. Rishi, all Vedic literatures. Purana, and the Puranas, the supplementary Vedas. The translation reads, O Lord, your shadow is seen in irreligion, which brings about the varieties of irreligious creations. The three modes of nature, goodness, passion, and ignorance, are your three eyes. All the Vedic literatures, which are full of verses, are emanations from you, because their compilers wrote the various scriptures after receiving your glance. So I'll read that once more. O Lord, your shadow is seen in irreligion, which brings about varieties of irreligious creations. The three modes of nature, goodness, passion, and ignorance, are your three eyes. All the Vedic literatures, which are full of verses, are emanations from you, because their compilers wrote various scriptures after receiving your glance. So there's no purport. We'll read the next one, which is what was scheduled anyways. Nategiri trakila lokapala virincha vaikuntra surendra gamyam jyotiparam yatra rajas tamascha sattvam nayad brahma nirashta bhedam. O Lord Girisha, since the impersonal Brahman effulgence is transcendental to the material modes of goodness, passion, ignorance, the various directors of this material world certainly cannot appreciate it or even know where it is. It is not understandable even to Lord Brahma, Lord Vishnu, or the King of Heaven, Mahendra. Lord Girisha, since the impersonal Brahman effulgence is transcendental to the material modes of goodness, passion, ignorance, the various directors of this material world certainly cannot appreciate it or even know where it is. It is not understandable even to Lord Brahma, Lord Vishnu, or the King of Heaven, Mahendra. So this does have a purport. Purport: the Brahma Jyotir is actually the effulgence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead as stated in Brahma Samhita 5.40. Yasya prabhavato jagadanda koti koti shashesha vasudhadi vibhuti binnam tad brahma nishkalam anantam asesha bhutang govindamadi purusham tamahang bhajami. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, who is endowed with great power. The glowing effulgence of his transcendental form is the impersonal Brahman, which is absolute, complete, and unlimited, and which displays varieties of countless planets with their different opulences in millions and millions of universes. Although the impersonal feature of the Absolute is an expansion of the rays of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he does not need to take care of the impersonalists who enter the Brahma Jyotir. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 9, text 4, Mayam tatam idam sarvam jagadavyaktamurti na. In my impersonal feature, I pervade this entire universe. Thus, the avyakta murti, the impersonal feature, is certainly an expansion of Krishna's energy. Mayavadis, who prefer to merge into the Brahman effulgence, worship Lord Shiva. The mantras referred to in text 29 are called the Mukhani Panchopanishadas Tavesha. Mayavadis take all these mantras seriously in worshiping Lord Shiva. These mantras are as follows, and I'm not going to read that. It will take a lot of time, and I think it would not be of any particular worth. The impersonal Brahman is unknown even to other directors of the material creation, including Lord Brahma, Lord Indra, and even Lord Vishnu. This does not mean, however, that Lord Vishnu is not omniscient. Lord Vishnu is omniscient, but he does not need to understand what is going on in his all-pervading expansion. Therefore, in Bhagavad Gita, the Lord says that although everything is an expansion of him, Mayam tatamidam sarvam, he does not need to take care of everything. Naham cheshvabashtitaha. Since there are various directors, like Lord Brahma, Shiva, and Indra. Okay, so these two verses are verses that describe the nature of Shiva. They are glorifications of Lord Shiva. And of course, what might strike us as a little bit unusual is that Lord Shiva is being described as if he were identical with the personality of Godhead. And back in, 8th canto, chapter 7, this very chapter, text 21, Prabhupada describes in the purport that the Supreme Lord has three guna avatars, or Shaktavesha avatars that are in charge of the various modes of nature. As we know, Brahma is in charge of the mode of passion, Shiva is in charge of the mode of ignorance, and Vishnu is in charge of the mode of goodness. So these are, in one sense, representative of the Lord. And as Prabhupada explains, that these verses glorifying Lord Shiva are really just glorifying the Supreme Lord, Krishna. And Lord Shiva is being seen as a stand-in for Lord Krishna, because everything comes ultimately from Krishna, including Lord Shiva. We've been in Brooklyn discussing the second canto, where we're describing how the universe is becoming generated. And the universe gets generated through various expansions of the Supreme Lord. So from the Supreme Lord down the line, we get Sadashiva. And from Sadashiva, we get the Shiva that we know in the material universe. And so these are, one can equate them. Lord Shiva is understood to be like yogurt, and Krishna is like milk. You can always turn milk into yogurt, but you can never turn yogurt back into milk. So Lord Shiva is not considered exactly the same as a living being like you and I, but he's not fully the Supreme Lord either. He's somewhere between. All right, so this chapter 7 of Canto 8, is entitled Lord Shiva Saves the Universe by Drinking Poison. So in the difficult endeavor of churning the milk ocean, the demigods and demons discovered the only thing that was produced was a terrible poison, the Kalakuta poison, or sometimes a Hala poison. Lord Shiva was approached to drink this poison and save the world. Lord Shiva was the right person to do it. First of all, he's very beneficent. He was willing to do the task of saving the world by drinking this Kalakuta poison. And at the same time, Lord Shiva was powerful enough to be able to withstand the effect of the poison. When the demigods and demons were working so hard to gain this nectar of immortality, they had gone through so many difficulties and tribulations. And finally, it appeared that the only thing they got for their trouble was this poison that was spreading everywhere and causing a menace for the entire universe. They approached Parvati, who was the wife of Lord Shiva, and asked her if she could ask her husband whether he would drink the poison. It might seem strange that the demigods would ask his wife to see, can you tell your husband to go drink the poison? And on top of it, Parvati is eager, You would think, what kind of wife is this, wants her husband to drink poison. But she was not eager for that reason. She was actually very attached to her husband. And she knew that the poison would not harm him. So that's why she approached her husband Shiva. And of course, Shiva did drink the poison, and he was not at all harmed by it. But it did make his neck blue. So Lord Shiva is sometimes known as Nilakanta, meaning one who has a blue neck. So today's little session is about understanding impersonalism, because Prabhupada kind of talks about impersonalism in this verse. That's one of the ideas, that the verses that are said in glorification of Lord Shiva are verses that refer to some Vedic scriptures that are mainstream or very central to the Mayavad translation, or in the Mayavad understanding of the Vedic literatures. So the verses are about a process that's called Panchopasana, which is where the Mayavadis generally worship one of 5 deities, Panchopasana. Pancho means 5, and Upasana means to worship. And they're, I think, Shiva, the sun god, Vishnu, Garuda, and I forgot what all 5 of them are. But they are not worshiping these demigods because they are trying to get material benedictions from them. They're trying to merge with them and become one with them. That's the idea. So this is a different idea. So we know that in this particular chapter so far, we have heard about the demigods and the demons collectively trying to churn the milk ocean. And in the process of any kind of activity, whether spiritual or material, there will always be obstacles. And the end result, you may be not aware, but whatever result we get, whether it's positive or negative, is all being given by the Supreme Lord. We cannot appreciate any other kind of result done solely by our own hand. The modern false ego imagines that whatever we accomplish by our own hand, but it is not so. The only thing that is accomplished is because it receives the blessings of the Supreme Lord. But we should also understand that sometimes something is not accomplished, and that is also a blessing of the Supreme Lord. Sometimes even, in spite of working very hard, we discover that something we're endeavoring for, not only do we not receive it, but instead we get some catastrophe or some negative version of what we're trying to accomplish. And we should not be disheartened, because in spiritual life, in Krishna consciousness, whatever we do is already successful just because we attempted to do it. It may or may not have an outcome in the material world, but because we endeavored to please the Supreme Lord, then that's already successful. If we please the Supreme Lord and we attempt to continue to please the Supreme Lord, essentially more and more, most of our activities will meet with success, because the Supreme Lord will see that we are in alignment with his own desires, and therefore he will naturally allow us to accomplish the things which he himself also wants to accomplish. So sometimes negative effects are seen in spiritual life. When we endeavor, we get some setback. But this is also a mercy of the Supreme Lord, and we should not feel particularly disturbed by it. So rare, like Lord Shiva, rare is that person who hears a call for help and then decides to answer that call for help. In doing so, even places themselves at risk. Lord Shiva could understand that the situation was very dire, and as a result, Lord Shiva made the effort to drink the hala poison, and as a result he saved the world. Here in this painting we see the drips of the poison as he's trying to drink it fall on the ground, and certain creatures take advantage of the poison that has slipped from Shiva's lips, and they themselves become poisonous as a result, like scorpions and snakes and so forth. So some creatures were able to take advantage of this poison, and they use it as a defense mechanism. So the demigods, they knew that they had no other recourse, so they had to approach Lord Shiva. And doing so, they were not turned away. They actually got the benediction, the mercy of Lord Shiva in his pledge to help them, and he in fact did drink the ocean of poison. So now let us turn to this verse, because in general Vaishnavism is seen in stark contrast to Impersonalism, or what is sometimes called Advaita-Vedanta or the Mayavada sect. So Impersonalism comes from Adi Shankara, who came to deliver India from Buddhism. This was somewhere around the 7th or 8th century, somewhere like that. So that's when Adi Shankara established the Vedic literatures again, after India had abandoned the Vedas for the most part for something like 1600 years. we find, historically speaking, that Lord Buddha, who is generally taken to have come around the 7th or 8th century BC, he preached a philosophy that disregarded the Vedas, because at that time the Vedas were being used as a pretext for animal killing on large scale. The Karma Mimamsa group of philosophers, they were taking the Vedas to be a imperative to perform various sacrifices. But these sacrifices were animal sacrifices. But they decided to go further than just the sacrifice and turn them into actually an animal eating festival. So animals were being killed in large quantities. And as a result, this was a travesty on what the Vedic knowledge was really trying to put forward. So Lord Buddha, who also is an incarnation of the Supreme Lord, a Shaktaveksha incarnation, he came and he set aside the Vedas. He said, if the Vedas teach this kind of violence, then I don't want to know about them. So he preached a philosophy which is largely, in many ways, taken from the Vedas. But it was very strongly anti meat eating. It put forward the principle of ahimsa as the highest principle. Of course, today, Buddhists mostly are not vegetarian, but this was the original main preaching platform of Buddha some many centuries ago. Buddha then gradually became the main philosophy of India. The Buddhist tradition became quite prominent in India, and it was taken by a Indian king named Emperor Ashoka, and it became the state religion. Later, when Adi Shankara came, he preached against Buddhism and reinstated the Vedic literatures as important, whereas Buddha had denigrated them. However, he preached a philosophy that was just a shade different from Buddhism. He preached an impersonal philosophy, that the Supreme Lord is the Brahman. He may be worshipped by certain less intelligent religionists as a person, but actually he has no form. And this was the doctrine that Adi Shankara tried to put forward. We see this in the mats that he established. So Shankaracharya did not live a long time, but he got a lot done during the time that he was alive. He established 4 principal mats, one in the north at Badarik Ashram, one in the south at Sringeri, one in the east at Jagannath Puri, and one in the west at Dwarka. These 4 mats were all impersonal mats with the impersonal philosophy, and they set about changing the attitude of the entirety of India. So by the time we got Lord Chaitanya 500 years ago, the entirety of India was mostly completely under the control, the psychology of this Mayavad understanding. And as a result, the Vaishnavacharyas had to do quite a lot of preaching to counter this propaganda. In Prabhupada's Pranam Mantra, it says Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desha Tarine. So the Prabhupada delivers from Nirvishesha. Nirvishesha means no form, and Shunyavad, which means zero. So Shunya is zero. So if you take a look at Buddhism, Shankara, and our philosophy, the Vedanta, we find that there are three numbers associated with them: 0, 1, and 2. So the Buddhists are 0. They say everything is 0. 0, 0, 0, 0. Nothing, nothing. It's gone there. There's nothing there. Everything is coming from the void. Whereas Shankara says everything is one, ek. Everything comes from one thing, the Brahman. It is the white light, the endless effulgence that generates all being of any sort, whether living or not, whether abstract or tangible. Then we are 2. We have 2, 2, 2, 2, 2. So we are putting forward a philosophy that accepts there's a Supreme Lord and the living entities. And although the living entities certainly do come from the Supreme Lord, they are made of the essence of the Supreme Lord, they are not identical in all respects with the Supreme Lord. They are the Supreme Lord in particle form, whereas the Supreme Lord is the Supreme Lord in complete form. So Krishna is God the total, and we are God the particle. The Mayavadis do not understand or accept this. So that's why these philosophies are gravely divergent from one another. And we do not accept the idea that we will depersonalize into the Brahman. Since there is a section of people who do want to depersonalize into the Brahman, the Supreme Lord allows that to take place. He makes it possible that living entities who have that desire, they can merge with the Brahman, and they can merge for a long period of time. However, they cannot stay there forever, because one cannot abandon or dissolve one's identity. We are by nature eternal and conscious. And somebody drops an atomic bomb on us, the bomb will certainly destroy our body, but it will not destroy the soul. Nor can any kind of yoga or any kind of impersonal process turn us into a non-being. Nothing can change the fact that we exist. We can exist in various different situations or various different levels of consciousness, but we will continue to exist in all situations. So impersonalism is characterized by these 7 different things. There's more, but these are the basic ideas of impersonalism. The belief that we are all God, and that's kind of the bottom line. An emphasis on austerity rather than an emphasis on devotion. So their main spiritual practice is to engage in very difficult austerities. And they have an emphasis on wrangling. They study the Vedas, not so much with the desire to understand what the Vedas are really saying, but with an intent to be able to engage in philosophical debate and win that philosophical debate. They focus on grammar as one of the main items that the Vedas are constituted with. So to understand the Vedas, one has to understand grammar. But they make an enormous effort to understand it so that they will be good in debate. Then they believe that everything is illusion. They say that Brahma Satya Jagan Mitya, that Brahman is truth and Jagan, the material world, is illusion. So every form, every activity, every deity, every religious act, everything that ever happens, it's all illusion. That the only thing that's real is the white light, the Brahman. And so they want to merge with Brahman. And they especially also consider that all forms of God, whoever or whatever anyone has as an idea of a worshipable deity, that is an illusion that is present in the consciousness of those who are not fully enlightened, who don't fully understand the Brahman. So this gives us a kind of overview of impersonalism. We do not accept that because there are problems with that philosophy, both from a regular point of view, of a philosophical point of view, and also it's not really supported in the Vedic literatures. We understand that Krishna is a person, and in Bhagavad Gita, for instance, he says, Brahmano hi pratishtaham, that I am the source of the Vedic, I'm the source of Brahman, that not that the Brahman is the source of me, I am the source of Brahman. So it's undoubted that, it's undoubtable that the Supreme Lord has this all-pervading feature, that the white light indeed does come from him. However, that aspect of him is not very important, and that's why the Vaishnavas don't place much emphasis on it. And what we instead place our emphasis on is the Supreme Lord with a form, because we can have a relationship with the form, and we can have emotions towards the Supreme, towards someone with a form. But we can neither really have a relationship with, nor have any emotional outpouring towards a formless God. So I'm going to sort of pause at this point and see if there's any feedback, realizations, or whatever, and then we'll see where we go from there. So over to you all. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. I was wondering about this thing in the purport where Prabhupada says that it does not matter that Lord Vishnu does not know about the impersonal Brahman, that it does not impede his omniscience, because he doesn't need to take care of it. Now, I understand that it's he doesn't need to know about the material world, because he has Lord Brahma, he has Lord Indra, he has Lord Shiva to deal with all of these things. But then there's nobody dealing. There's nothing going on there in the Brahman. There's nobody there taking care of it. So you would go like, how is he omniscient there? Mm-hmm. If he doesn't know, if he doesn't know what's going on there, and there's nobody there representing him, and yet
there's nobody there that what?
Like representing him in like Lord Lord Brahma, or there's no there, and yet we know that in the Brahman effulgence, that's also like part of the spiritual world, right?
Right.
That's that's where the Vaikuntha planets are situated. That's
right. The spiritual sky.
That's where the impersonalists actually go. The real impersonalists. That's where they merge into.
Right.
And where they come out from. So how is it that nobody is overlooking that, and yet he is omniscient? That I don't understand.
Well, I'll say a few things, and then you can respond or kind of think about them. This whole idea about Vishnu not knowing about the Brahman, since the Supreme Lord is everything, if he doesn't know something, he doesn't know it only because of a personal desire to be uninformed about something. And at a second's notice, he could be informed about it. So it's a part of the fact that the Supreme Lord cannot be anything other than omniscient, but nevertheless, he can be voluntarily non-omniscient about something. And this is usually done for a particular purpose. Krishna is purposefully non-omniscient about some of his pastimes so he can enjoy them. If you know everything is about to happen, then you cannot enjoy as much as if things are or can be a surprise for you. In one sense, he does know. In another sense, he doesn't know. And this is the interesting thing about the Supreme Lord. I keep returning to this main principle, that whatever you say about the Supreme Lord, you can say the opposite thing, and both are true. This doesn't work for anything else, but for the Supreme Lord, you can say is A, and then you can say is not A, and both are true. They may not be true in exactly the same nuance, but both things can be true. So the Supreme Lord knows and he doesn't know. And we hear in the Vedic literature that this kind of contradictory dialogue or contradictory expression of our philosophical truth is quite common. The Lord walks, but he does not walk. He is very near, and yet he's very far away. He is within everything, and yet he's not within everything. Or that verse that Prabhupada quoted today, 9.4, that in Bhagavad Gita, that he is the source of everything, and yet he is still aloof. So after a while, I have started to get used to this concept. And the reason that you can say contradictory things about the Supreme Lord is since really he is the source of everything, so how can he not be contradictory? Everything comes from him, up, down, black, white, yes, no, good, bad, forward, backwards, past, present, future. Even various atheistic and Mayavad philosophies, they all come from the Supreme Lord too. Everything emanates from him. So if you have something that is the sum repository of every conceivable thing, how can it not be contradictory in some ways? And in this way, we can see that the Supreme Lord, he is, in this sense, apparently not caring to know the details of what's going on in the Brahma Jyoti. Just as Krishna, when he's enjoying his rasa dance, he doesn't think about all the countless living entities who are miserably continuing in their material life in some kind of way. He's enjoying. But that doesn't mean that it's out of sight, out of mind. He has representatives that tackle a lot of things, like Vishnu is in charge of manifesting the universes, and Yamaraj is in charge of understanding and meting out karma and things like that. So these things are being handled in some way. So that's how I would respond to at least one of the ways. I don't know if that answers your question, or if I understood your question and hit it on the head.
Wow, fantastic answer, Marge. Fantastic.
One time there was this thing going around, that can God make a mountain that he can't move? And oftentimes people latch onto that like this is absolute proof that God is either illogical, or he is not all-powerful because he can't make a mountain that he can't move. But actually, Krishna could easily make a mountain that he couldn't move. He could make it as Vishnu and not move it, and then move it as Krishna. So he's moving it and not moving it at the same time. So, just like Hiranyakashipu tried to use logic and various kinds of verbal definitions to carve out for himself a special place where he would live forever. But these kind of mental and logical tricks, they do not extend to the deep nature of the way the world really works when we're at the level of the Supreme Lord and his energy. Certainly, they do hold sway in the material world that we inhabit, but there's a point where they also do not any longer make any sense. They're not applicable.
Marge, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you, Adi.
Yeah, the whole Mayavad philosophy is so ridiculous and dry and unsatisfying. One devotee was telling us that he was traveling with Brahmananda. Everybody knows Brahmananda. He has a great big body. He left this body a little while ago, and they stayed in one impersonal ashram, and they were arguing vigorously with this one skinny little impersonalist sannyasi there. And then at night they went to take rest, and everybody had one thin little blanket. You know that story, right?
No, I haven't heard of it.
It was cold that night, and Brahmananda, he reached over and he pulled the blanket off the skinny little Mayavad guy. And he put two blankets on himself. And the Mayavad guy said, "Hey, that's my blanket." Brahmananda said, "It's all one, don't worry about it." Took his blanket.
Yeah, I never heard that story. That's a good story.
But it's beyond logic. Like you said, we don't be limited by our logic. And,
well, logic itself, too, has its limitations. It has a place where it applies, and there's a place where it no longer applies anymore. So it is a restriction, and restrictions apply within certain ranges, and beyond those ranges, they don't apply anymore. Even some modern philosophers who are probably atheistic also have this notion that logic may only hold sway to a certain extent, and some things are naturally beyond logic.
And Prabhupada quotes that, quote, "Foolish consistency is the hobgoblin of small minds."
Yeah.
Foolish consistency is the hobgoblin of small minds. That if we're small-minded, we'll be stuck in what we think we can understand by logic, but Krishna's beyond that. How wonderful is Krishna?
So today I have to kind of move right along because I'm moving some things into the Brooklyn Temple. I'm starting the process of moving back in because this place here at 84 McDougal is disappearing in about half a month or something like that, or in about a month, actually about a month. So we're making some arrangements. So I've got a ride, and we got to get a big truck. And
That thing in the background looks like the Brahma Jyoti.
I know. Well, I'm perfect person to talk about the impersonalism in Brahma Jyoti because I'm such an impersonalist myself, and I can really relate to the philosophy. I'm struggling to be actually personal, but my real leaning is towards impersonalism. I joined the wrong movement, but somehow or another I got caught up, and I'm still staying here. So
I hope you have something with the gopis and Krishna in the background dancing or something.
Right.
That, you know.
I just found something that was easy to kind of keep out of focus because there's a whole bunch of stuff cluttered in the back of my room here. I've got everything packed into a 15 by 15 by 12 room. So this keeps everybody from being distracted by the stuff that's going on back there. But at any rate, I've started a new... a new YouTube channel called Forest Dwellers 108.
They're popping on the Kant show.
If you want,
Raj, could you put the link in the chat? Could you put the link to your channel in the chat?
It's not a link really. It's a name. So it's called. if you go to YouTube and you put in Forest Dwellers 108 as one smushed together long thing with no spaces in between, and then you will notice that you will not see my YouTube channel, but you have to press that little section where it says showing results for Forest space Dwellers space 108. And then on the right it says show only results for Forest Dwellers 108 with no spaces. Click on that. And if you click on that part, then immediately my YouTube channel pops up. And I'm uploading all these Zooms that I'm doing to YouTube. So little by little they'll get there. Thank you all very much, and all glory to the Vaishnava devotees. Hari Haribo.